Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Eric Dammann. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I've been asked to speak today about our current situation and offer up some thoughts about how to try to cope with what's going on. As I'm sure everybody is now aware, we're dealing with unprecedented levels of uncertainty right now on many levels. Certainly, first and foremost, about the virus itself. Unfortunately, we still don't know that much about just how contagious it is. How long the outbreak is likely to last, when the first vaccines might be available. On top of that, we're also dealing with unprecedented economic uncertainty. How long is the recession going to last? Will I have a job on the other side of this? Will I have a 401k on the other side of this? And then on top of that, we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty about our daily lives in terms of our routines. We tend to be creatures of habit, and we like that sense of control and routine that comes with our lives. And certainly for most of us, our routines have been turned upside down. So whether it's going to the gym every morning before work, or commuting, or going to the pub with a friend for a beer after work, whatever it is, we've lost all those routines, and those routines are very important to us. So when you add all of that together, not surprisingly, many people are experiencing very high levels of anxiety and fear right now. And the problem is, if this anxiety is not dealt with well, it can lead in one of two opposite but equally problematic directions. The first is denial. And we saw this especially early on with the outbreak. A lot of denial, people talking about how this was no big deal, it's just a cold. Many of us have seen the images of spring breakers, even in the last week or two. Partying on the beach, hugging, dancing, sharing the same Solo cup, etc. Now, the tricky thing about denial, though, is that denial, up to a degree, is a very important, necessary, and really fundamental kind of defense mechanism that we all use. Every time you get in your car in the morning to drive to work, let's say, you are taking a risk of maybe getting in an accident. We live every day with the realization of the possibility of a terrorist attack or nuclear war or whatever. But we learn to cope by putting those things on the back burner, and that's healthy denial, and we all need it. The problem is, when denial is overused, it can blind us, and it leads us not to take necessary actions to protect ourselves, and that's the extreme form of denial. The opposite of denial is panic, or hysteria, you could call it. And these are people who get so paralyzed by the fear of anxiety that they too are unable to take necessary steps to protect themselves. So our challenge in times like these is to find a balance between these two extremes, to live with mindful awareness and precautions, but to continue living, to continue going about your life to the best of your ability. Okay, so now I'd like to share a few tips, things that you can do to try to help you navigate through this time. We'll be following up with a second video at some point that'll have some additional information, but these are things that you can start to do right away. These are things I've been talking about with clients and trying to incorporate into my own life as well. And they don't take a lot of time, but they're things that I do think will help. The first has to do with information overload. I think it's critical for everybody to find a trusted news source, and then maybe visit it once or twice a day. But other than that, really try to shut it down. We are getting overloaded, I think, with information and even misinformation now. And while we all know now that the virus is very contagious, we clearly also know that anxiety is very contagious. And that's something that we can do something about. To minimize our exposure to both the virus and the anxiety is very critical in terms of getting through this. And one easy way to do that is to just, shut the news down. Once you've gotten the information that you need, really try to turn those things off so that we're not bombarded by it. Another critical step in all of this is to be aware of and practice empathy and patience with each other. For many of us, we're going to be cooped up together in sometimes small quarters. And so we're really going to need to be empathic and patient with each other through this. It's important, I think, to talk openly about your feelings, about what's going on, your fears, your concerns. But equally important to realize that everybody's going to react differently to this based on our personalities or our histories or whatever it is. We all have our own unique ways of dealing with coping with fear and anxiety. some people will need to talk about it a lot, and that's their way of getting it out. For other people, that's actually very triggering. And in fact, they need to talk about it not very much at all. And once they have spoken about it for a minute or two, they want to move on to different things. The critical thing here is there's no right or wrong to this. And if we can respect and be aware of that other people that we're living with maybe need to react to it differently, it can help us give them the space they need emotionally to cope with this. We've all heard the cliche, don't sweat the small stuff. This is a very important, like all cliches, there's some truth to it, and this is a very important time for that we're really going to need to give each other a little extra rope and space. Okay, so I think that's a good place for us to stop for today. We don't want to overload you with too much information. I would recommend, though, that for anybody who is feeling overwhelmed with what's going on, please do reach out to families, to family members, friends. There are hotlines out there. There are many therapists you can look up online who are now doing both phone and video remote sessions. Insurance companies are now actually covering those because of the crisis. So the point is there are resources out there for you if need be. So please do make use of them. And as I said, we'll be following up with a second video with some other tips, so you can look for that.